Hello everyone, this video tutorial is for the For Your Cheddar Wallet by KMGhandmade. This is a nice slim wallet. You can carry it as a clutch or just throw it into your bag. When you open the wallet, you will find 4 card slots here. Then you'll see a zipper pocket, perfect for coins or anything you want to put in there to keep safe. Then you have this slip pocket behind the zipper pocket and 4 more card slots behind there as well. When you close it, it is all held closed with this closure strap. Again, you can use this as a little clutch or just throw it into your bag. I'm going to walk you through all the steps of making this little wallet, so let's get started. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is read through the entire pattern. There's some information in there that is very important for making this wallet, so you do want to read that before you start cutting out your pattern pieces. Once you're ready to cut out your pattern pieces, there are pattern piece templates, but there's also measurements given for cutting. So you can use a ruler and rotary cutter, or you can use the pattern pieces given in the pattern. I used a ruler and rotary cutter to cut out all my pattern pieces. All the measurements are given there. Another thing I've done is I've gone ahead and labeled what the pattern pieces are. So this is pattern piece A, so I've gone ahead and labeled it. And I've also marked a T up at the top here to tell me where the top is, just so I know how to place these when I'm constructing the wallet. Another thing I've gone ahead and done is I've already made my lines on my pattern pieces. So because I read through, I knew where all the lines were that needed to be made. So I've gone ahead and done that. I did fold these 2 pattern pieces and press them already, but I am going to show you how to do that when we get to that step in the pattern. So I will show you how to do that, not to worry. I've also put my zipper pull on my zipper, so I'm all ready for that. So now we're going to get started. We're going to put this all to the side. The first thing you need to grab is your zipper and your zipper tabs. And in the pattern, she has you cut the zipper to a specific length, so you'll want to pay attention to that. Again, mine's already cut. You're going to place this zipper tab so that it is right sides together with the right side of your zipper, and you're just going to wrap it around the zipper. And you want the raw edges to be on the wrong side of your zipper. So your wrong side of your zipper, and then these raw edges are folded so that they are under the zipper, so they won't be seen in the final construction. So you're just going to take that, wrap it around, and you're going to pin it in place, just like that. And you'll see that the raw edges are on the wrong side of my zipper. I know this seems a little bit wrong because that's not what you're probably used to, but just trust the process, it will work. So I'm going to add some clips just down here to help hold this so that it doesn't shift around when I am sewing. And again, your zipper tab, so this way, place it so that it is pretty side against the pretty side of the zipper, and wrap it around your zipper. Now my hands aren't working and letting me do this. And if as you're doing it, you're finding, as I am, my hands aren't really working very well for me today, you can just add a clip to help hold it while you're wrapping it around the other side. And then make sure the top is even with your zipper tape. So make sure this is all nice and flush up here. And then you just wrap it around. And again, the raw edges will be on the wrong side of the zipper tape. So when the zipper tabs are sewn, you're not going to see the raw edges at all of the zipper tab. So there's that. So that is now done. So we're going to put this to the side for now, and we're going to grab out our handles, or our closure strap, sorry. So again, in the pattern, there are some marks that you need to make, so you'll want to go ahead and make those marks like I did. I made a mark down the center. For the one strap, if you're using cotton, even if you're using cotton for both, you'll fold it so that the long raw edges meet the center line that you made. So you'll fold it and press, and then you'll fold the other edge in so that it looks like this. So it becomes half the size or half the width of the piece when it's not folded. So again, you're just taking these raw edges, the long raw edges, and folding them into the center to meet, just like that. And it'll look like this. Now I have a piece here for my other piece that I'm using faux leather. So I need to use some double-sided tape. And if you're finding that after you press this, it doesn't stay down, you can also use some double-sided tape on this to help hold it in place. Sometimes I find I give it a press with my nail, and that helps push it down a little bit more, creases it nicely. Just like that. And now I'm going to use some double-sided tape. So I've made the mark down the entire length of the center of the closer strap. Now I'm going to place the tape on each side of the line. Once you have your tape, you can remove one of the protective backings from one side. And then we will fold this long edge in to meet that center line that you made. And again, you can do this with cotton as well. If you feel that your cotton isn't staying pressed, you can use some double-sided tape to help hold it in place. And that's how the first one will look. Now I'm going to fold this second side over to meet this edge here as well. So I'm going to fold it over to meet in the middle. So fold it till it meets that center line you made. Just like that. And again, once you fold it, the width becomes half the width of the piece before you folded everything in. It'll look just like that. You'll have the raw edges meeting in the center here and no raw edges on the other side. We're going to put this to the side for now. Oh, sorry, we're not going to put it to the side. Next thing we're going to do, sorry, I didn't mean to skip ahead, is we're going to line these up. So what you're doing is you want to line up those raw edges in the center. This is how I do it. I line up these raw edges in the center. So I have a raw edge on this one here, where the two long edges met in the middle. To make sure that this is centered, I take where the long edges met in the middle here and on this one, and I line those up, and then I clip it in place. Just like that. And then I know that my piece is going to be all centered. So I'll do that on both edges, so that this is on the short edges where I'm clipping right now. And then I will clip the rest of the way just to help hold it in place. And again, the reason why I clipped the short edges first and I lined up those two center raw edges is it just helps make sure that this piece is going to be centered when I go to stitch this together. So that's how it'll look when you're done. We're going to put that to the side for now as well, and we're going to move on. So the next thing we need to do is grab our lining piece A. Grab our lining piece A and our lining piece B. In the pattern, Kristen gives some measurements, so you'll want to go ahead and make those measurements if you haven't done them already. As I said in the beginning, I went ahead and did that, and that's just for recording purposes, just so that this is a little bit faster and I'm not stopping to have to make these lines. However, I am going to show you how I did this. So, using the measurements given in the pattern, go ahead and make all your marks starting from the bottom and work your way up. So, the bottom of piece A here, and she does have you make some cuts as well on piece A, so this is the top of piece A, so it looks like that. So you'll start from the bottom and make those measurements going up. Another thing I like to do, besides making those lines ahead of time, is I marked where the mountains, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see that, but I wrote a little M here, and that just tells me that this is a mountain. And then I wrote a V on this line, and that tells me that that's a valley. And then I wrote an M and a V. So I followed her instructions in the patterns for the measurements, and then I went ahead and I wrote M, V, M, V, M, V. And you may be wondering, why have I done that? The reason for this is when I am at my iron and I'm pressing these, I know which direction these need to be pressed in, because mountain folds need to be pressed so they are wrong sides together. So that is your side that will have your interfacing. It'll get pressed together. valleys, get pressed so they are pretty sides touching. So your pretty sides will be touching for your valley. So it's like a mountain, your mountain, and then your valley at the bottom. So that's how it'll look. If you look at this, it looks like you have a mountain, and then down here you have a little valley, just like that. So I just wanted to explain that just for anybody who is wondering about that. So again, I've made my marks, and I wrote a little M and a V just as she has in the pattern, so I know which way I'm folding them. So once you have all your marks made, you don't have to do that. That's just a personal preference, but it does help. I do find it's very helpful. You'll go ahead and press these. So starting at your bottom line, you'll mountain fold it. So that means wrong sides together. Then your next line, you're going to fold it valley fold, pretty sides together. Then you have another mountain fold, wrong sides together. Then you have a valley fold, that's pretty sides together. Then you have another mountain fold, that's wrong sides together. Then another valley fold, that's pretty sides together. Your piece is going to look like this once it's all folded. You're going to have 3 mountains and then the 3 valleys right there, and then a long piece off the top. And that's for pattern piece A. Pattern piece B, same thing, make all your lines, write which one's a mountain, which one's a valley, which one's a mountain. So for this one, working bottom to the top, you have a mountain fold first, so wrong sides together. Then the next line is a valley fold, and that will be right sides, or as I like to say, pretty sides together. Then you have another mountain fold, and that is wrong sides together. Then you have another valley fold, pretty sides together. And this is where the direction changes, because we were going mountain, valley, mountain, valley. Now we're going with a valley fold. So again, pretty sides together. So as you notice, I folded this over, so I'm seeing the wrong side of my pattern piece. Then we have a mountain fold to finish. So it'll look like this. You'll have, oops, 2 mountains over here, then you'll have this valley here, and then you'll have this mountain piece here. And that's how you're going to fold those 2 pieces. You'll want to take them to the iron and give them a really good press to make sure they're nice and pressed. You can use some steam to help press them. And that is how you make those. So again, like I said, I like to write where the mountain fold is, where the valley fold is, this way here. It just helps me remember as I'm folding, and I don't confuse myself or fold anything the wrong way, because often we go to our iron and our pattern is on our table or it's on our computer and it's not right near us, so we can forget. This just makes sure that I don't forget. Another thing, double check your measurements. You want to ensure that they are correct. I'm going to admit something. When I was making my marks, I accidentally marked lining B with some of the lining A marks. I kept reading the wrong ones, so even I make mistakes, and I used one of my Frixion pens to make these marks originally. So I did that, and then because I used the Frixion pen, I was able to go and erase it with my iron. Once I had the measurements correct, as you'll notice as I said on this one, I went ahead and I drew over them with pencil just for this tutorial so that I could show you. But normally I wouldn't go over them with pencil, I would just leave them with the Frixion pen, but I did go over them with pencil so I could show you where the lines were. So again, always double check your measurements just to make sure you're not pressing anything the wrong way. And if you do accidentally press it the wrong way, it's not the end of the world. Just use some steam, press the piece flat, remark the line, and remeasure again and refold. So those are done. Now we're going to move on to the next step. Another thing she does suggest in the pattern is she does suggest using quilt cotton or batik for these, because they are thick, and to also keep your interfacing out of the seam allowances, again because it is thick, that just helps keep everything out of the seam allowance. So the next thing we need to do is we need to apply some double-sided tape, and she has a little drawing on the bottom of page, I believe it is page 7. She has a little drawing at the bottom of page 7 for where to apply the double-sided tape, so you'll want to refer to that and which one of these folds the double-sided tape is going on. What I did was, again, when I was making all my marks on my pattern pieces after I drew my lines, I referred to that diagram and I marked a little X so I know where the double-sided tape is going. So I'm going to go ahead and place my double-sided tape now. So I'm placing it along this entire fold. And again, this is because I read through the pattern before I started cutting and everything, so I knew where all the things were that were going to need marks or need any double-sided tape or anything like that. So it is helpful to read ahead, because then you just get right to sewing, and you don't have to stop and make white lines or make marks or anything like that. You can just get right to sewing. And that's also why this pattern is designed the way it is, so you get all the prep work done and then you just jump in and get right to sewing. So there's my one piece. This is pattern piece, oh, I don't even know what it is. Pattern piece B with my double-sided tape. And then pattern piece A, I'm going to look for where I made those X's, and I'm going to put the tape on that as well, on pattern piece B, or I mean A, sorry. So you can look and see how her diagram is in the pattern to make sure that you've done it right. You'll know that you've done it right if it looks, so I just kind of lay mine out and look at it how she has it in the diagram. So in her diagram, she has it looking, it's kind of hard to see on camera because I can't hold this, but she has it looking like this. So I know I've put it right because of where her diagram shows the arrow pointing to this piece. Alright, so back to A. Again, I'm going to look for where those X's are that I made. I made 2 X's, and I know that I need to put the tape on this side of the pattern piece. Another thing with my tape is I like to fold this piece, just the short end, down a little bit. So fold it back onto itself, and that creates like a little tab because there's no tape at the top piece here, and that just makes it easier for removing the tape when you place it down. Don't remove the backing, keep the protective backing on your pattern, on your tape for now. We're not removing that. I'm just going to cut these strings. And there we have it. So these are now done for now. What we need to do, it is all done. We're going to move on. And this was just part of the prep work. This is just, again, to help us be able to get to sewing quicker. So next we need to do our zipper and strap closure. So we're going to be sewing these now. So we've already pinned them all together, now we're going to sew. So she does suggest to check your bobbin, make sure your bobbin's full, check everything, and then you can get started. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew across this, from the raw edge, we're going to sew across this using the seam allowance she gives in the pattern. So go ahead and do that. And you'll want to repeat that for both sides. So across that edge using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And remember, I put some clips right here. That was just to help hold it so that nothing really shifts on me. So the next you're going to pull the fabric away. So you're just going to flip it around, pull it away. And remember, you had one overlapping, so just make sure they stay overlapped the way you originally had them. Sorry, my girl Buddy wants to be here. I swear she gets lots of attention. She's not starving for attention. So I like to just give it a little finger press just to make sure. You can take it to the iron too and press it with your iron, but I like to just give it a little finger press. There we go, that's what that'll look like. Now we're going to top stitch across these 2 edges using the seam allowance given in the pattern. And that's how it looks when you've top stitched it, just like that. So we're going to put this one to the side for now. And we're going to grab this strap that we made. And we're going to top stitch along the strap, along these edges here, using the seam allowance given in the pattern as well. So you're just sewing on the narrower piece here. You're sewing on that one. Alright, so once you've top stitched, it's going to be stuck together. You're not going to see any raw edges because if you remember, we put the raw edges facing each other, sorry. We put the raw edges facing each other, so there's no raw edges seen. They're enclosed between the two layers. So that's how it'll look once you have top stitched it. So I'm going to put that one to the side for now. Right, so now we need these two lining pieces and our zipper. Oh, my tape. And we need to lay these out on our table as she shows in the pattern. So I'm going to lay them out on my table, just like that, just like this. You want to put your zipper in the center where the two panels meet, with your zipper closure going to the left. So zipping, when it's closed, it goes to the left. Now we're going to take these pieces and remove the double-sided tape. So remember I showed you earlier to create that little tab. It makes it easy for removing tape. And we're going to stick each of these pieces to our zipper, just as she instructs in the pattern. And you want to try and center it. Just like that. I'm going to repeat that for the lining piece A, attaching it to my zipper. Stuck to my table. And I'm just going to line up the edges with the piece that's already stuck down. Okay, now that I have those in place, it'll look like that. I'm going to go ahead and top stitch these using the seam allowance given in the pattern. you were doing is you were just top stitching along the stitching you made on the mountains. That's all I did. I just followed that top stitching to stitch that down. So now I'm going to place this back how she has in the picture in the pattern, because now we need to refold these so that you have some card slots. And you need to make some marks for where the card slots are. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll come back and show you how to sew it. So refer to page, let me tell you, page 11 for where the markings are that you're going to make. Refer to that, and then we'll come back and we'll sew it. Okay, so now that we have the lines made, or the marks made that we need that she gives in the pattern, we're going to go ahead and stitch these folds. And again, you're stitching from the top down and you're stopping where the fold is, just as she instructs in the pattern. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I used a Clover Choco for this, just so that I can dust off any marks that I've made. So now I have them all stitched, and this creates your card pockets. So you'll see I have card pockets now that are divided, because I've stitched down the center. I know it's hard to see because I used a thread that matches, but I have the card slots stitched, as you can see here. So that is all stitched now. Next we're going to, oh, and the other thing I did was just to mention, I pinned the sides. That just helps keep the card slots from shifting on me while I'm sewing. You can go ahead and remove those pins if you did pin them. I just find, again, it helps keep everything from shifting on me when I'm sewing. It keeps it nice, flat together, exactly where it should be. So now that we have our card slots all stitched, we're going to flip our panel over so that we see the wrong side. We're going to take these two zipper pocket pieces and place them so that they are pretty sides touching, and we're going to align the long raw edges and clip it in place. Once you have this all clipped in place, you're going to take this to the machine and sew it with the seam allowance given in the pattern. So again, you're clipping and lining up that whole long raw edge, just like that. And as you'll notice, I've removed my clips from the previous step that I had. I just have them because it helps hold the the card slots in place so nothing shifts on me while I'm sewing this, so that I don't get card slots that are kind of on an angle. I just like having those there. I've removed them. So now that my zipper pocket is clipped in place, I'm going to sew along this edge using the seam allowance she gives in the pattern. There we go. I've stitched my zipper pocket, so if you open up your pocket, you'll see that your hand can't go through the opening anymore. It is complete. Now we're going to lay this again on the table, and we're going to take this zipper pocket piece and lay it so it is flat against these top card slot pockets. So this is the top of your lining. You want to take this piece when it's laying like this, and it kind of bows right now because we have a zipper pocket piece underneath. You're going to take this zipper, and I just like to grab the zipper and hold the zipper, and then bring it so it's on top of these card slots here, just like that. So your card slots are hidden behind your zipper pocket. And now we're going to pin this in place. And you want to slide your zipper pull so it's in the center of the panel so that you don't catch any of the zipper in the final assembly. And we're going to clip this, as I said, in place. So again, it looks like that once I have it clipped. So there's my card slot. So that's the top of the lining. It's the one with the shape. I have card slots behind the zipper pocket, which creates also a slip pocket. And then you have your zipper pocket. And then you have more card slots down here, and you can see there. So now we're going to move on. Oh, sorry. First we're going to baste these sides together. Sorry. That is a pretty important step. And again, as I'm sewing, I'm going to move my clips down to where these card slots are so that they don't shift on me again. But I'm going to go ahead and pin these. And also make sure that your card slots, there's no, like they're not folded how mine was here. It's kind of folded over. Just make sure everything's nice and flat. Including the zipper pocket that's inside here as well. This is pretty thick, so if you find that your machine has a hard time with the bulk, go ahead and try and put a walking foot on your machine or use a humper jumper to help sew through the bulk. You can also use a bigger needle. Those two tips there are only for if your machine struggles with bulk. I'm just going to trim this down because my threads are all wild. And also I have a little bit of an overhang of my zipper tab. There we go. And that's how it'll look once you've sewn the sides. So you'll see that, if you remember when I held this up before, my zipper pocket, my card slot pocket, sorry, fell. Now they're there and I can put cards in here and they won't fall out. So there we go. I have my card slots behind as well, a slip pocket and a zipper pocket. And again, my zipper pull is staying in the center just so that in the final assembly we don't get this caught. Now we need our exterior C, so it's going to look like this. I've marked a T where the top is, and I've marked it with a C. We're going to lay this so that I'm going to place it so that it is wrong side down, and we want the strap at the bottom. Then I'm going to place my lining piece, that is all completed, directly on top, lining up the bottom edges. And I'm going to add some clips here just to help hold it in place for this next step, just to make sure nothing shifts on me, because we're going to be trimming this so that it is all even. And the reason why I'm putting it wrong sides together is because I'm going to draw some lines on this. If you have the pattern template, you can go ahead and use the pattern template. I didn't use the pattern template, as I mentioned previously. I used a rotary cutter and a ruler. So now I'm going to use my Frixion pen and I'm going to trace the lining. Just like that. So you can see I've traced my lining. I don't know if you're going to be able to see those lines. Yeah, you can kind of see it. So I've traced the lining all the way across. So I'm going to unclip my lining. And then I'm going to trim that excess off. And you can go ahead and use your ruler and rotary cutter for this. I'm just going to use my scissors and quickly cut it away. This was something I could have done during prep. However, it's nice to save this for the end just to make sure that these are both the same size for the pieces when you go to put them together. So this is nice to save this for this step in construction. So there you go. it's trimmed up. Now we're going to continue on. So we're going to place these so they are right sides together, and you're going to pin them. So pin them all along the edges so that they're all together. When you get down to where the strap is, you don't want to pull it. You want it to definitely stay bowing in the middle. Like I said earlier, it does bow. That is how you want it to be because you're going to be slipping that, that flap into there. So you do need it to bow. And again, this is going to be a bulky sew because of these card slots on the side and the zipper pocket. So as I mentioned previously, go ahead and use a walking foot, a humper jumper, anything you need to help you sew through that bulk. This wallet can also be made in all quilt cotton. You don't have to use a faux leather as I did. Quilt cotton results in a really beautiful wallet as well. Use whatever material your machine is good with sewing. Some machines have a really hard time with bulk, but again, if you use that walking foot or a humper jumper, what I used to find before I had the machine I sew on now is sometimes I would hammer that bulky area. So I put a scrap piece of fabric between the material and my hammer, and I would hammer it, and that just helps flatten and compress everything so that it's nice and flat, and then that just made it easier for my other machine to stitch through because it wasn't as bulky. So again, I just used a hammer, scrap piece of fabric, and then I hammered the material so that it flattened it out. So I have it all pinned. We're going to leave an opening for turning. So what I like to do sometimes is just make a mark so that I know, and you really only need it big enough to fit your hand in. So my hand can fit in there, so that's good. So we're going to start stitching at the one end, stitch up all the way around, go all the way around and come back and stop. Again, leave that opening for turning the wallet out through when we're done. So you're going to use the seam allowance given in the pattern, and again with your strap closure, make sure it's flat here. You don't want it to be bowing over towards the edge here. You want it to stay nice and flat. So when you approach this, flatten it out so that it's bowing in the center, not on the edge. Another tip, for extra reinforcement in the corners, what I like to do is backstitch. So find where the corner is and I backstitch in those corners, and that just helps give some extra reinforcement when I'm pushing those corners out because there's extra thread there to help sort of reinforce it. So I'm at the part where my strap closer is, so I'm going to push it so it's nice and flat and it's bowing in the center. I'm also, for extra security, I'm just going to backstitch over that strap. That just gives that some extra security because it will be a high stress area for the flap closing in and out on it. And just keep sewing all the way around. Again, I'm at a corner, did the same thing. That's just a personal preference. You don't have to do that. I just find it helps add, because when you are poking out the corner, sometimes if you take your turning tool and you poke a little too hard, this just here, it just helps create extra security. So I'm coming back to the strap closure. So again, I'm going to push it to flatten it out here on my bed of my sewing machine. Same thing as I did previously. Back stitch over it for extra security. Now we need to trim our corners, And we're also going to trim that strap closure. When you're trimming your corners, be careful not to clip where you sewed. You don't want to clip your stitches. And that's how it's going to look once you have it all clipped and sewn. And I have the opening for turning right sides out, so my hand is inside there. Now we are on to the final assembly. So we're going to turn this right sides out. These are the final stages. I always find these the most exciting parts, is seeing all your work and how it looks. So being careful when you're poking out those corners. Use a turning tool. Before I had this handy dandy turning tool, I actually used to use a comb, the one with the handle on it. I don't know the exact term for it, but it was the comb that had the handle on it, and it was a sharp piece on the end. I used to use that for turning out my corners. You can also use this. It's a letter opener or a boning tool. This is what I used when I was a card maker. I had one of these from that. You can use anything you want. This boning tool helps with pushing out the seams. That's what I like to use it for, run it along my seams, and it helps give it a nice flat press. Anything you have, use any tools you have. You don't have to go out and buy all the fancy gadgets. Use whatever you have in your house, as long as it's not something sharp that's going to poke through, because you don't want it to be too sharp and poke through your stitches. So you kind of do want it to sort of have a bit of a blunt end. So a chopstick is another thing you can use. I know when I started out sewing, I just used whatever I had on hand so that I could build up as I went along what I thought I would really need, and then I found, you know what, I need a tool like this because I do use it a lot. So that strap piece should be here. It shouldn't be on the front or on the lining side. It should be on the front of the panel. So I used a material that I can't really press. Oh, I can see some threads here that I can't really press, but I'm going to go and carefully press it because I don't want to touch the Mora vinyl faux leather that I use. So I'm going to go ahead and try and give this a press without touching that. So I'm going to do that, and I will be right back. So I've given this a press. I was careful not to press on the vinyl. I've pressed just this top edge here. So now I'm going to go ahead and top stitch all along this edge here from the zipper end and to zipper end. You're not stitching through this bulk here, you're just stitching the flap. I'm going to add some clips just to help hold this in place. And I'm going to stitch from on the exterior. I don't want to stitch on my lining. So because of that, I'm going to make some marks where my zipper stops, start, and stop, just so that I can know where I need to start and stop sewing, or get as close to those to start and stop sewing. So I'm just making some marks on my panels just so I can see where it is, where those zipper tabs are. So I'm just adding some of these clips all the way around to help hold it, and then I'm going to top stitch all the way around. So this may be a little bit tricky. Take your time getting it under your presser foot. You don't have to start at exactly where the zipper stop is, but as close to it as you can get. thing I like to do is pull the threads through. So leave long tails and pull them through, and then I tie it off. I know I back stitch a little bit, but I also like to do this just, again, extra security. So just like that, I've pulled it through, and then I'm going to tie a knot just to secure it. So just like this, I'm tying a little knot, and then once I have the knot tied, don't pull too hard as well because you will break the threads. Pull tight enough, but don't break them. Once I have the knot tied, I will trim these threads. You can also do this instead of backstitching, then you don't have that backstitch look. But I used a thread that matches my material, so it won't show up as much. There we go. I got it all top stitched all the way around. And that's how the lining looks. Now it's all top stitched. Next we need to make some marks. So she has you measure from the zipper down and make some marks. I've already gone ahead and done that. I've made my marks here. So once those marks are made, you can go ahead and stitch along those 2 lines that you made. So I'm going to add some clips here again just to help hold everything in place. And I'm going to top stitch along those 2 lines. Don't rush this, take your time, make sure everything is nice and flat. And I kept my stitch length at the length I used for top stitching for this step. When we're done the final stitching, I'll go ahead with my iron and I will remove the marks I made with my Friction marking pen. So now that I've stitched those 2 lines, I'm going to tuck my raw edge in. So you're tucking it in the same seam allowance that you use to sew the pattern. So I'm going to tuck that, and I'm going to pin my lining part first just to get it nice and tucked in. And then I'll turn the exterior and do the same thing. You can also use some double-sided tape here to help hold it in place. Makes it easier when sewing, nothing will shift on you if you need that extra hold. Again, this is another step. Take your time, don't rush. And if you're like me, you're a perfectionist, you're going to keep going until this edge is as straight as it can get. It really is worth it to take your time and get this all lined up nicely. There we go. So I have it all clipped, all nice, and now we're going to top stitch this edge using the seam allowance she gives in the pattern. So there it is. I've top stitched that side all closed. Again, make sure this wrist strap is on the exterior, not on the lining. When you close it, it'll look like this. Just like that. The closure holds that in. When you open it up, you've got some card slots here. You've got your zipper pocket, a spot for some bills here in this slip pocket, and then more card slots behind the zipper as well. Again, folds in. Could wear it as a little clutch, carry it just like this, but it makes a great wallet for just throwing in your bag. Nice slim wallet, perfect for throwing in your bag. So there it is. There is your For Your Cheddar Wallet by KMGhandmade. I hope you enjoyed this video tutorial and maybe picked up a few tips and tricks along the way. If you have any comments or any questions, you can go ahead and email Kristen at the email given in the pattern, or pop the comments below and I will reply to them as soon as I see them. Don't forget to post your finished For Your Cheddar wallets in the KMG Bag Makers group on Facebook and also on social media, and use those hashtags so she can easily find all your wallets that you've created. Again, thank you for sewing along with me, and I hope you all have a wonderful day. Bye.